Lankford.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all, for the testimony. It's extremely important to be able to have this dialogue. Let me follow up with just with a basic question on this that I think we've talked about a little bit on the edge, but it's been interesting to do some reading on it. Mr. Elias, is nuclear power determined to be base power, or is it flexible power? Is it intermittent power, or is it determined to be consistent?
Yeah. Senator, I think you could characterize nuclear power as either baseload or flexible, depending on the plant design and its operating regimen. We have historically thought about nuclear plants as baseloaded, and that's the way we tend to run them in this system. But the technology can fill any one of those roles if designed and located properly.
So why would it be flexible? Why wouldn't it be base? What would be the design and the reason to be able to use it as flexible?
I thought Mr. Levesque pointed out a good example where using thermal salt storage to store the power, it can operate as a base load, or you can use that storage capability as a peaking resource, as a good example of the flexibility in nuclear technology.
Okay.
That's correct, Senator, and that's one of the design goals of Natrium. And, you know, when we talk about the economics of nuclear energy, better economics involve lower costs that's enabled by new technology. But better economics for utilities is also related to, you know, the rate at which the power can be sold. In a plant like Natrium, being able to flex is going to be able to participate in capacity markets where the electricity will be at a higher cost. So, you know, again, in the past, nuclear has been base load, and new plants like Natrium allow nuclear to participate in, you know, entirely new and more economically attractive markets.
Mr. Levesque, you talked a lot about having the power that is more of a smaller modular unit and not trying to create as large. Tell me the advantage of that and how many facilities would have to be built to be able to make a difference on our power source across the country.
So to be clear, Senator, if we think about 2050, we envision many small and, this is TerraPower, we envision many small and large nuclear plants. You know, today, most nuclear plants are gigawatt scale. And yes, we're talking about building smaller plants on the order of 300 megawatts per station now. That's what customers are looking for as they retire coal units, as we work nuclear into an established grid in countries like the US and Europe where there's developed grids. But certainly as we prove out these first units at 300 megawatts, we anticipate growing the Natrium output you know, back up to gigawatt scale. And again, if we think about 2050, we imagine many nuclear plants around the world, you know, new 300 megawatt units and also new gigawatt scale units as well, providing both electricity and process heat.
So, Levesque, let me ask you, when you say about many, give me a number. How many are you talking about? To be able to cover the United States by 2050, how many facilities would have to be built that are nuclear to be able to cover our energy needs?
Yeah, it would be scores of plants. It all depends on you
more
know,
than 10.
Certainly.
More than 100.
Certainly, scores of plants. And yeah, the opportunity for these advanced reactors is in the hundreds. I mean,
so are we talking 1,000? Are we talking 1,000 that would have to be built by then?
Certainly hundreds. Certainly hundreds between now and 2050. And that's why companies like TerraPower and X Energy are bringing so much private investment, because we plan to sell and deliver hundreds of plants. That's how we'll get the return on investment.
To get to a zero emissions by 2050, does anyone have a good idea how many facilities we would have to build by 2050? Because we've talked a lot about wind power and solar power and how many acres that would cover. Actually, how many entire states that would have to cover to be able to do that. How many nuclear facilities would we have to build to be able to get to that point by 2050? Does anyone have a good number for that?
I do not have a good number, but when you're talking about zero emission, that's increasing the entirety, eliminating the entire coal fleet, eliminating the entire natural gas fleet, and eliminating the industrial or converting the industrial heat use, which is 90+% fossil fuel, all to non-emitting baseload technologies. And that's going to require hundreds of plants, hundreds of gigawatts of plants over the next 50 years, far greater than, you know, we operate basically 100 gigawatts of plants now in the United States that were built between 1960 and 1995. We're talking about doing a multiple of that between now and 2050 in order to get close to achieving the kinds of decarbonization goals that you've outlined in your question.
And each one would cost about how much each?
The X-Energy plant, we're going to be competitive with the price of natural gas. So we have a price at less than $50 per megawatt hour on a go-forward basis.
Okay, thank you.